Welcome to FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast series. Here we talk about all things franchising. What is it all about? Is it for you? How do you find the best one to own? And so much more. Now your host, Tim Parmeter.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today is another installment of our segment that we refer to as In Their Words. I am so incredibly biased because this is my favorite section, a segment of the show, because here we get to talk to and listen to and hear from FranCoach clients who have become franchise owners. We're going to talk about their background, what led them to consider franchise ownership, how they navigated the process with the FranCoach team, as well as what franchise they chose and how it's gone so far. This one's even cooler because this guest was a podcast listener. So we've gone full circle. These are always super fun. So this is his 15-ish minutes of fame with all 7 of our followers. So before we get to that, we always have to kind of remind people of who the heck we are. FranCoach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals interested in owning a franchise. We're partnered with well over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, spanning nearly 70 industries. Our goal is to help clients find the absolute best franchise to own. And the goal of the Franchising 101 podcast series is to educate people on all aspects of franchise ownership. So that's us, all the fun little disclaimers. Now let's get into our amazing guest today. Joining us from a faraway place called Mesa, Arizona, is Mr. Stephen Hatley. Steve, thanks for joining us today, my friend.
Yeah, Tim, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, let's see how you feel about that here in the next 20 minutes, brother. So we'll see how it goes. So enjoyed chatting with you throughout all of this. It's been great to get to know you, and so excited to kind of share your story from and like so many, corporate to get me the hell out of there into doing my own thing. So give everybody a little background on you before you got into this franchising thing. Tell us a little about Steve.
Yeah, gosh, where do I start? So I live what I consider to be a very blessed and fortunate lifestyle. I'm surrounded by 3 amazing women every day. My beautiful wife, Ashley, and our 2 little girls, Brooklyn and Taylor, ages about 3.5 and 1.5. So that kind of answers what takes up our spare time. but no, we're very fortunate to live here in Phoenix. So live a very active lifestyle, spend a lot of time, outdoors, random hall pass. You'll certainly find me on the golf course with some buddies, but, we're young parents. We've got 2 little ones, so we're definitely fully embracing that lifestyle and just, taking it day by day and raising those little girls. But, I had a great childhood, real tight family unit. We were, as an Air Force brat, we were actually stationed to Phoenix on my 10th birthday. So I moved here when I was 10. I'm not a true native to the Valley, but I grew up here, went to high school here, graduated from Arizona State, and I've been very fortunate to stay out here, working with a number of different companies, but always had an opportunity to kind of stay here in Phoenix and build some roots. So again, Phoenix is home, and we're just having a lot of fun right now. It's some big changes on the horizon, but it's kind of a little bit about the personal side. Professionally, Tim, I graduated in May of 2009. So, we were we were just kind of coming out of the housing crisis. It was kind of a very interesting economy, but I certainly didn't let that stop my just efforts of graduate college. You got to get a job, right? So I was very fortunate to graduate on a Thursday or Friday, kind of party hard through the weekend, and rolled right into my first job Monday morning. And, I tell folks I grew up professionally in the facilities management industry. So I had a kind of a small stint working for a golf management company, actually here in Scottsdale, only to be recruited back to the original company that I started with. But that first company out of college, how I would describe it, within the industry is very large commercial janitorial firm, but really a bundled soft services provider. So they specialized in providing commercial services to big pharma, manufacturing clientele, anywhere where there might be like a clean room or a lab that required a very specific type of cleaning, landscape services, pest control, snow removal, sustainability services. So, you can imagine buddies. I, graduate from college. I've got my shiny finance degree and off to become a janitor. But I quickly realized just how incredible that industry would be. Definitely had a significant impact on where I am today. Like I said, I spent a little over a decade with that first company. Wore a number of hats, started in operations. Like I said, background in finance, so spent some time in kind of the corporate FP&A world. I tripped into running a supply chain team. And then after that, kind of my most recent employer, probably spent the past 4-ish years in more of a business development role. Jumped across the table, was actually with a manufacturer. So got a different perspective of the industry, had a blast. Learned a lot and was really able to, I think, kind of sharpen some of my sales and business development skills. And that's from a professional standpoint. That's kind of where I've been hanging out the past 15 years.
Nice. And so, well, first of all, way back to the beginning, and you and your lovely bride, who you have. Very much like myself, we both outkicked our coverages with our wives, right? So, and beautiful little girls, and clearly that's probably why you don't have any hair from those two little ones, right? So, and you've had this, like, as you talk about your corporate run, like that was all positive, and most people are like, "Oh my gosh, it was terrible. I hated it," and all this stuff. You're just kind of a positive dude anyway, but you were doing well, you were having success, right? So what made you even think about getting out of that and doing something for yourself?
Yeah, let me, I'll try to kind of break this down and kind of the timeline of events, so to speak. But, I think this all kind of goes back to, November-ish kind of time frame last year. And I just had started, paying attention to just little signals, paying attention to what other folks in my life were doing, buddies, former colleagues. Some had just kind of made comments. I'm kind of thinking about doing something on my own. And, you'll hear me refer to this maybe throughout this conversation, just different trigger moments or, hang on, there's something there, kind of pay attention. And I don't know if it was 2 a.m. nights rocking one of the girls or COVID or whatever, but over the past 2 years, I'm one of those, victims that just discovered podcasts, and there's probably, 6 or 7 that I roll through today. And at the time, I was listening to an episode part of the Sean Ryan show, and he had a guest on, Rob Luna. And I guess for folks that have never heard of Rob, I'm biased because he's an Arizona State grad and used to live in Mesa, but he's a wealth advisor and a regular on one of the business outlets. And he was a guest on the show, just talking about the economy, wealth building, how to generate true income, wealth, et cetera, et cetera. And he made a comment during the interview. I think don't quote me, but something along the lines of, if I had nothing but $30,000 to my name, tomorrow, I'd go start a business. That's kind of the one true way to find some build wealth, happiness, kind of control your own lifestyle. And there just something clicked there. I don't know what it was, but it was just kind of interesting. Fast forward to, this is one of those rare Friday afternoons in December. The girls were still in daycare. My wife and I knocked off early for just go visit one of our favorite little watering holes and just catch up over a couple glasses of wine and just kind of a check-in, right? I think those that are parents, especially 2 working parents, those are hard to come by. So as she will tell you, I remember getting in the car that afternoon, leaving that date, and telling Ashley it's one of the most fun afternoons I've had in a while, just because it was such a great, meaningful conversation. And anyway, in that conversation, I told Ashley, don't be worried. I don't want you to stress out or anything. I'm not depressed. impressed. I'm not unhappy, but I've kind of been sitting on something for the past, probably 6 months or so. I keep on trying to shush it, but I'm just missing just a genuine sense of fulfillment in what I'm doing every single day professionally. And I can tell that that's starting to have an impact on me personally. And I refuse, to keep on going down this path. Some things got to change. And, I just told her it's not necessarily the company. It's not what I'm doing per se. It's a much larger, a pain point, kind of hard to describe. And the most frustrating part is I told Ashley, if I had to go look for a job tomorrow, I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what to search, what to look for. I'm very proud of my resume and kind of my experience, but I look at my background and I feel like it's this charcuterie board of experience and, operations and finance and supply chain. Now you're doing business development. How in the world do I take all that together? And if I, worst case scenario, I had to start all over again with another company, you don't just jump up to chief whatever, role. And so I just kind of found myself taking stock. At 35, I'm still young, but arguably looking down the second half of what should be kind of the best years professionally. And so kind of park that over there. Conversation evolved. She had happened to join a boutique fitness. It was actually a franchise, kind of one of those high intensity training camps, and she loved it. Brought our girls there. The owners were just doing a fantastic job creating a culture that was not only focused on, I guess women, but especially women that were recovering from, pregnancy, which I having 2 little girls and, wife at home, I can't appreciate, but I can understand. Right. And, Ashley just made this comment, out of nowhere, like, there's got to be something to small business ownership. I mean, how cool would that be to just, that was your life day to day, get to, hang out, see your guests, build this, be engaged in the community. And, again, trigger moment. I just kind of stopped and said, Ashley, well, why not us? I've met folks that have done this. They're not any smarter. They don't have any other advantages that we don't have. And so if that was on a Friday afternoon, by Sunday night, I hate to say it, but, off to the Google machine. I think I had built out a 10-year pro forma. I had accidentally discovered an item 19. I didn't know what an FDD was, but, I just poured myself into researching what opening up maybe something in fitness would look like. And sorry, I know this is long-winded, but I very quickly had a conversation with my younger brother, who, very, very, very much, I think, kind of an entrepreneurial spirit within, his own heart. And, he gave me that confidence and that encouragement and just said, I think you're on to something, and I would encourage you to stay down this path, but I would really challenge you to make sure that fitness is something that you want to get into. Don't let Ashley's excitement, just because you go to the gym every day, don't let that cloud your vision of what you might be looking for. And that really made sense. I didn't want to hear it necessarily, but I really tried to embrace kind of his words. And lo and behold, I go back to this, and surely there's a podcast out there or something where perhaps there's something with franchising. I kind of like that idea of having some guidelines, some systems, some processes, kind of the bumper lane, so to speak. I just want to get out and bowl and get a feel for it, and discover the Franchising 101 podcast. So.
And I'm sorry, what was the name of that podcast you discovered again? So, so no, you talk about a couple of things there, but when we first talked, you were like, there was a definite interest in the fitness. We'll get into which franchise you own, but it has nothing to do with boutique fitness, right? Talk about kind of that journey from you do have a diverse background and kind of roles from a corporate standpoint, but I guess maybe this helped because you weren't in the most sexy industry in the world from a corporate standpoint, right? And you come in kind of thinking, hey, we really like this boutique fitness. How did that evolve? How was that a hard transition for you to get out of what you thought it was going to be and then be open to what it ended up being? What was that like for you?
Yeah, and I think I shared this with you through the process, Tim. I think in some ways, one of the best things that I did is I probably listened to a good 15, 20 episodes before I reached out and gave you a call. So the negative side of that is, yeah, what are you doing? Reach out, kind of start the process. But I guess from on the flip side, though, I was actually, I didn't know it all, but I was prepared, I think, even for that very first conversation. I had heard a couple of In Their Words episodes. I'd gotten kind of a feel for, how your process works. Admittedly, I actually reached out to a franchisor that you had on the show, and that's hey, who's Tim? Tell me about this guy, and it was that group that said, oh, he's like a matchmaker. If this is something that you want to explore from a holistic level and understand what opportunities might be out there, give Tim a call. So when we started our process, kind of getting back to your question, I think that's I told you that by day one, and I'm sure we'll explore this at some point in our chat here. But I think I remember saying I don't have some crazy idea. There's nothing out there that I can think of where I have the passion. Is kind of the word. I don't know what I'm passionate about, and we'll kind of park that maybe for 5 minutes from now or so. But I did step into this process knowing that I knew one thing is that I have to remain in a seek to understand kind of exploration mode and just trust in the process and do not let myself get into decision-making mode. Having said that, in the back of my mind, and we talked about this, the entire time, and this kind of came from a conversation that I had with my dad. I reached out to him very early on, kind of right as we were connecting, and kind of said, hey, I think I was looking for him to tell me no, actually. I think I was looking for him to say, Steven, get your head out of the clouds, get back to that's so far kind of out of reach. And I got the exact opposite. He had shared that, no, I think there's absolutely something there. I think you should pursue it. My biggest advice to you, though, is you've got to make sure that you find something that you can get out of bed for, and something that you use, frequently. I don't know if I'm answering the question, per se, but the best thing that I did stepping into this process was trying to, I had an idea of how you work. I knew that you would approach me and say, Steve, you're going to roll your eyes at one of these. And I really tried hard to just kind of remain in that, again, seek to understand space and just be very open and vulnerable to the process. Had some ideas here and there, had some areas of interest that I even marked, kind of on the profile. But, I didn't let that sway me one way versus the other.
Yeah, no, and I think that you did a fantastic job of having an open mind. And again, I always say there's a difference between asking questions and questioning, right? And you were always asking questions. How do I seek to understand? How do I seek to learn something else? And which is perfect. And then you talk about you just said the word passion a couple times, right? Well, hey, did we have a passion for fitness? Well, yes, okay. But what's that get out of bed test thing for you with this? And what happens so many times is what people think the passion isn't really the passion. It is some of the things. And as we got going into this, you've talked even today, but throughout the process, connecting in the community, right? You're somebody who wants to get out and be that face of the business, build those referral sources and partners, great customer service, really doing that, understanding the beauty behind an industry that isn't the shiny, sexy object, right? But are something that's needed. It's never going away, having a chance to have a variety of different things. Those were the things that we kind of honed in on that were like, aha, that's the passion that's going to get me out of bed. The business, what the it is as far as what they sell is like not completely immaterial, but it's certainly down the list a little bit. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and Guys, let's be honest. You're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more.
Yeah, no, Tim, that's spot on. Like you said, I mean, coming from the space that I came from, it like I said, it's not a traditionally, it's not a sexy industry, right? But once you're on the inside, it's nearly recession proof. The opportunity to work with some of the best, most sophisticated clients and teams dedicated to innovation, for example, or sustainability efforts. It's one of those things. Once you're in, you understand it, and your definition of sexy changes. And I still have my list. It's right here in front of me. Kind of through the process. Eventually, we really honed in on and we keep what are you looking for out of the business model? And we came back to this constantly, even when we arrived at what became kind of my decision. And I don't want to give away. I'll keep a little bit of a build up here, but I for sure I was looking for something that I didn't have to go back to school for necessarily. Something kind of simple enough that I could wrap my head conceptually around the business model. Low startup costs, recurring revenue was a big one for us. Something where I can truly be engaged in my local community. That's kind of one of the biggest pain points and why I got here, right? Being a great employer in the area, having the opportunity to be generous and charitable, obviously something with consistent and solid margins, and we there was a couple of different industries that we definitely had an interest in, but it was those larger kind of key pieces of the business model that I'm jumping ahead here. I think that remained consistent, and all the ones that we looked at.
Yeah. And I just was scrolling back through my notes, and when we get to the point of introducing people to franchises, usually 3 or 4, kind of depending on how things shake out. But I typically will ask people, like, I'm going to give like a 3, 4, 5 minute overview of here's the franchise, this is what they do, what they look for, why I think it might be a match. And there are at times one of those franchises that people think we are just absolutely lost our mind. That's terrible. I don't understand it. To which I usually find a polite way to say I don't care, right? But I'll kind of ask, like, how do we rank them? And you bizarrely are in the minority in this, because I look back, the one that you owned was ranked number 1 that day. As we went through this, a couple of them kept getting closer, right? There was, maybe we might have been like 1A, 1B for a while, but ultimately there was a little separation, and it really hit all of those things that you just talked about. So let's do the big reveal. You are a brand spanking new franchise owner of.
Yeah, the Grounds Guys, part of Neighborly.
Awesome. So I'm putting you on the spot because you're not even really fully into training yet. What's your 30-second elevator pitch? Geez, Steve, what's Grounds Guys?
Yeah. So I'd say this. Number 1, the Grounds Guys is part of Neighborly Brands, which I think is so cool. Neighborly is kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room in terms of home services, right? They have an initiative to truly own the home in the space. So anything that has to do with repairing, maintaining, or enhancing the home. The Grounds Guys is a full service lawn and landscape company. And I'm gonna rip from the president that I heard, how Josh kind of describes the company. I think, in our space, everybody asks, are you residential or are you commercial? Are you a niche, focus? Do you specialize in turf care or weed control, or do you do everything? And what is so intriguing and where I just feel so at home with this business model is, it can be all those things. It can be maintenance, it can be build, it can be commercial, it can be residential. The way that, we approach the market and the business model, it's number one, are you dealing with a local decision maker, right? Not bureaucracy, which was kind of, again, one of the pain points coming out of corporate America, right? And number two, are you dealing with someone that has a desire to have an aesthetically pleasing outdoor space? So when you combine all those things and you talk about, hey, yes, it can be commercial, it can be residential. I'd say residential is definitely the focus. That'll be our primary focus for sure. The first 12 months, establishing those recurring customer base, building that rapport within the community and getting our name out there. But the opportunity to take the business to so many different facets of landscaping and outdoor space is just terribly exciting.
No, and again, maybe at another date we can negotiate the trip charge for you from Mesa to Pima, Arizona. So we'll get back to my selfish needs later. Yeah. But some of the subtle things as we go through this process end up being the biggest differentiators, right? And usually things people don't think about. So as you talked about grounds guys, is it this, is it that? Like the answer is yes, right? It is obviously how do they say it? The mow and go, right? The basic things that you think of from a landscape company, but there's 20, 30 different services that you can do it's the one thing I think in Neighborly that's both the maintain and the enhance, right? Residential, commercial, wherever there's an outdoors, you can be there. And for you, that was great to have, be that basically whatever somebody needs, you can say yes. Some other people might see that and go, whoa, that's too much. I need this one thing that does just this one thing, right? And until you kind of get in and compare and contrast some things, it's hard to know that. And so again, I always it is just hardly ever what people think it's going to be coming into it. So all those things really tied in for you, and kind of looking at this. And so now we're getting ready to get started, right? Hopefully, first part of June, we should have grounds guys of I don't know what we're calling this yet, Mesa, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley. So basically, if you're in Phoenix and you're on the east side, we call Steve and he's gonna hook you up basically. So yeah. How's all that going so far, right? With getting into, you're not open yet, but you're kind of getting into the training where I'm guessing any given moment you feel like your head's going to explode from everything. What's that experience been like for you so far?
Yeah, it's it's been great, interesting for sure. But it kind of goes back to some of the earlier discussions that we had. I think if I was looking for another job, I've always worked for smaller, mid-sized, privately held organizations. So the thought of going to a just giant publicly traded company, I just don't think was in the cards for me personally. But it's so interesting because when you start looking at it through the lens of, okay, making this investment and going down the path of small business ownership, I don't want to write every process. I don't want to discover a problem, have it be my problem to solve. I've been doing that for 15 years in these kind of small to mid-sized companies. I'm looking for that structure. And so, in the short time, a month or so that we've been into kind of the virtual training, I'm at the point now where things are really starting to ramp up, diving into all the different systems, CRM, financials, just all the tools of a small business owner needs. It's just incredible to see the amount of resources and structure in place all across the board. My initial discussion so far with the franchise coaches and our SureStart coordinators has been fantastic. The marketing resources, just top notch. Again, you have the buying power of Neighborly, which is a $4 billion organization. So when John Doppelbauer, I've been a guest on in the past. He may have hit on this, but even going back to when we narrowed in on landscaping, I got to say this in case there's any future grounds guys out there. I think the landscaping industry is something like $100 billion industry. But the reality is there's probably 500,000 or so mom and pop. If you've got a truck and a trailer and slap an LLC on the side and mowing, 15 lawns, you're a landscape company. I feel like 100,000 of them are just in Phoenix here alone. So when you presented me the grounds guys, I was familiar with it, but it was like, Tim, I can't gas up at a QT in the morning before 7 a.m. and not see 5 landscape trucks fueling up for the day. How in the world am I going to compete out here? And, you doing the research, getting into, the franchise itself, going through training, you realize just how, yes, it's a very saturated space, but it's incredibly fragmented, right? And when you look at that $100 billion, space, there's only really a handful. Ashley used to work for one of them. There's a handful of commercial players that maybe own 2-3% of the market share. Everyone else is these mom and pop businesses that are just kind of running all across the board. So kind of taking it back to Neighborly, I'm a brand new business. I get to walk into insert whatever, truck dealership, equipment dealership, marketing, ad agency, payroll, HR suppliers, and I have the purchasing power of a $4 billion organization behind me. So it's just an incredible structure and systems in place, processes, support to get you truly on the path of small business ownership and giving yourself a legit shot at success, which again, we looked at a couple home services concepts. We looked at some completely different business models, but knowing the structure that was going to be in place behind the business was definitely a big factor in my decision. And it's certainly true just going through the initial training.
I think 2 things there is, one, as overwhelming as it can be when you're going through the process, especially as you get deeper into it, or you go to the meet the team day, you're like, oh my gosh, look at all of the places that they have support. And obviously Neighborly's just massive, but every franchise is going to have support in these areas. And then you start getting into training and you're like, whoa, this is even more than I thought, right? And you just don't have to, you're not on an island. I think it's the beauty of franchising, right? You're not on an island. You don't have to create, and yes, you have to be able to figure stuff out, but within the frameworks of that franchise, and you always have somebody to call. Within Grounds Guys and Neighborly, you've got teams of people to call, right? But one of I think the concern, as you probably know, one of my favorite words when people are like, oh, I got a concern here, right? Okay. Is that a deal breaker, or do we need more info, right? Is with many businesses, competition. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many landscapers. Oh my gosh, do you know why? Because everybody has an outdoors, right? And then you start looking into really the data and you're like, goodness gracious, if we had 1% of the market, 2% of the market, we can have this big business. There can be, 50 other companies out there fighting for the rest of it. And there's still space left, right? Then when you come into play, where you're also now, for you guys, coming in at a higher level, right? You're not the guy in the beat up pickup truck. You're not the kid down the street, right? You're coming in with almost like a borderline arrogance of like, this is just going to be so much better. And you're not going to leave. And then you've got all those other services kicking that. It can be scary at the beginning when you start seeing, like, you're like, I'm rolling into the Quick Trip in the morning, and here's all these landscape, or I see this one or this one or this one. Okay. Well, yeah. Walgreens went right across the street from CVS, right? Wendy's is right next to McDonald's. There's a reason, because the market will dictate it. You're going to get some business just because, and then for you coming in there, the differentiator with Grounds Guys, but then the key differentiator in any franchise, it's you. And being able to build that great staff, like have the quality, connect in the community, have the passion to be able to do those things. That's why you're going to be successful. Yes, the franchise is there to help you all that, but it's going to come down to you. So, which is why I know you're going to kill it with this.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, I think, jokingly in several, sessions. I'll even pick on our current setup today. We have that mom and pop, the crew that comes by, and sometimes I might get a text that morning. Sometimes I get it at 11 p.m. the night before. Sometimes it says, hey, we'll be there when we get there this week. So if I have a speaking engagement, if I have a conference call, if I'm doing a webinar and I have 2 leaf blowers outside my, window, that's my problem. If I'm not there, I assume the work got done. I don't know exactly what was done, but the check's under the mat, and hopefully we see you again next month. I hate to say it, but that's pretty much par for the core in this space. And so, which was kind of scary too. And it's like, gosh, is this really the space that I want to go into? But as we open up the grounds guys here in the East Valley, it's trained employees showing up in uniforms. We're insured, clean, branded trucks and trailers, systems and processes in place to make sure that we are operating to the utmost efficiencies. Remaining competitive from a cost perspective because of that buying power. But, Tim, you talk about just the customer facing technology alone. We live in an Amazon-esque world where if I were to order something right now, probably be on my doorstep before I go grab the girls from daycare, right? And a picture confirming, hey, this is what we did, this is what was delivered. So the opportunity to, really set yourself apart from, I think, these competitors with just very simple technology that within the grounds guys exists today, and just confirm that you're doing what you said you were going to do on time and at a fair price point, perhaps a premium. Like I said, I think it's greenfield in terms of the opportunity to make a difference and have an impact on a homeowner. And I think that was the biggest draw for me. I'm a homeowner. I have an outdoor space that we enjoy, and I want it to look nice. And if I'm going to pay someone to do something that I don't have the time or I don't want to do because I want to be going on a bike ride with my little girls, the market's changing. We live in a world where just, I think the bar of expectations in the service industry, it needs to step up. And I think Grounds Guys is truly headed the right direction. So it's awesome to be a part of that kind of initiative.
And let's be honest, you don't care if the landscapers around you keep the bar really low, so it makes it easier for you to just basically, kick their ass and take all the business. So,
there's plenty of business.
So cool for you, kind of coming on and sharing this. It's been a joy getting to know you. I feel like I know your family too, even though I haven't met them. But the last thing I want to kind of throw at you, because you've gone really kind of full circle, right? From literally listening to this podcast and like, geez, like, can I do it? Oh, wait, show the merch you got there, Stephen. What do we have for anybody that's actually seeing this on Spotify? A nice franchising 101. Like, if my 9-year-old here, he'd be talking about like, Dad, you need more merch. You need more merch. He literally thinks if we put a merch tab on the FranCoach website, people are going to be wanting to buy this stuff. So, yeah. So if anybody does, let me know, and he gets 5%. But you went full circle with this. Somebody's out there listening to this episode right now. What would be your advice? Like, because you were in that situation. Like, geez, do I? Don't I? Can I? Can't I? What would you share with somebody that now that you've gone all the way through this?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I was kind of preparing for if you did ask me that. So I'll answer it in a couple different lanes. Number one, if you're that first 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes in, I mean, there's something there. You're here for a reason, like Tim says. You're researching. There's something bugging you. Truly, you have nothing to lose by having a conversation with Tim and just throwing it all out there. Worst case scenario, right? You discover, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, or you realize, hey, maybe there's something here, and you have nothing to lose to at least explore what doors might be open. Tim, I told you that, I think day one, I was like, hey, I'm going to explore this until someone tells me no, or a door shuts, because I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. But I'm the kind of guy where I at least need to peek inside that door. And you told me, be prepared that you may never hear that no. So I think that'd be step number one, reach out, engage Tim. for those that have maybe started down the process, I would encourage them to remain in that seek to understand mode. I had a hard time accepting this myself. Tim will say it, that it just becomes clear, and it really does. But so remain objective, seek to understand, don't be in decision mode, trust the process, and it will become clear. But especially as things do become clear, and let's say you do narrow in on that one, and you're trying to make that decision to take the leap. This is the tough part, right? I think there's a certain perspective of, look, you can't steer a parked car, right? So just kind of jump in. But I personally, I've never done this amount of soul searching, looking in the mirror, really asking myself, Stephen, what do you want out of life? And I'll kind of take it back to our earlier reference to passion. And sorry to plug another podcast. Tim, I came across a gentleman, the real Jason Duncan, and he kind of talks about this, it's geared towards entrepreneurs living that kind of exit lifestyle, and truly being kind of that semi-absentee model. And he kind of has his 5 P's of success is what he'll talk through with entrepreneurs that he has on his show. And it's something like, passion, knowing the right people, being in the right place, being prepared, and having a plan. But when I heard how he broke down the word passion, that's what helped me kind of step across the line. I think passion's tricky, and a lot of people will very quickly associate passion with something that they like, something that they enjoy. I enjoy golf, but I'm not passionate about golf. But by definition, passion is something that you're willing to suffer for, something that you're willing to endure, right? So I think if you're in that space where you're narrowing in on something, or you're going down this path and you have that concern of, gosh, what am I passionate about? That's where I was. Again, for me, it came back to want to be engaged in the community. I want to build something that I can put my stamp on it. I want to build something that I can potentially pass down to my children. I want to be charitable. I want to be a face in the community. I want to be an employer in the community. I'm not doing this for applause. I certainly hope there's a financial benefit in the long run, but I want to be able to create those financial benefits for people that I might have the opportunity to employ. That's where my passion really started to kind of come to surface. And again, worst case scenario, if everybody called in sick tomorrow, you need to be able to say, yep, I can get out of bed and I can go do that. And, there is an element of that, because, one of the other concepts that you presented to him, it made the most, from a unit economic perspective, it made the most sense on paper. And we didn't go with that one because I just couldn't, my heart wasn't there. And so, for your audience, just listen to that gut feeling. But again, you can't steer a parked car. Sometimes you just got to take the leap of faith and, trust in yourself and trust in the process.
Nobody ever likes it when I say this, but the money follows the fit. And there's probably a handful of things that we talk about throughout this journey that this is why I never do these in video, because I don't want to see the facial expressions, right? So it's like, the money's going to follow the fit. I promise it will be clear in the end, right? And I know that one is but it is every single time. And we have it's on the agenda for one of our podcast episodes coming up is the whole the fact and fiction around passion, right? And it is rarely, I love pets, therefore I need a pet franchise, right? It is, what are you doing day in, day out, right? You can still take your business and positively affect your passion area. I love pets and I own this, right? FranCoach has nothing to do with college basketball, but that's kind of my passion from my background, right? So we sponsor 3 different college basketball programs, right? Because we can, right? And I like that, and being able to make a difference there. The business has nothing to do with that, right? And so same thing for you. So maybe it is, hey, it's something with your girls down the road, right? It's something for golf or whatever, right? Maybe we're gonna forks up and we're gonna do something for Sparky over at ASU, right? Whatever that might look like. You've got that there for you. You've got your business as that vehicle to it. So So super cool, man. Really thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and being a part of this journey for you. And I know you're going to be hugely successful with this. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, Tim, again, you've had a significant impact on my life this year. And, for those that have the pleasure of working with you, especially those early on, again, you have nothing to lose by having a conversation with Tim. So it's whatever I can do to support this show and you, Tim, I'm here for you.
Awesome. No, thank you very much. And, everybody listening, I was going to tell you don't bother reaching out, but Steve said so. So, FranCoach.net, franchising101podcast.net. If you like to read, franchisingnews.net. Again, my cheesy joke, it's all .net for us because we are nothing but net basketball guy, right? So, and anybody that saw me play may know that didn't always happen, but nobody listening ever saw me play, so I made every shot. So, thanks as always for everybody tuning in. We do hope we will hear from you soon. Maybe you get to go full circle and come and be a guest on the show down the road as well. So thanks for everybody tuning in. We hope to hear from you soon and help you create your better tomorrow. Thanks so much and have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast, where our ultimate goal is to help educate you on all things franchising, so you can create your better tomorrow.